I'm your host Ben, and welcome to the Foot Weekly podcast. It's week one, and the game is afoot. Packed into this hour-long podcast, we've got RTG legend Sam5000I, post-release trading, draft tactics insights, loads of player reviews, plus the Team of the Week rundown, and Dynamite Discards are back. So I'm joined by a man who is one of the biggest YouTubers in the business. It's not Air Japes FIFA this time, it is Road to Glory legend Sam5000. How are you, Sam?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to doing this.
Great. So is it true, Sam, that you coined the term Road to Glory?
I guess you could say that. Me and a moody Swede, who some viewers may remember if they remember me, we both started playing some Ultimate Team in FIFA 12 and decided to make some videos for it. We were kind of playing Call of Duty at the time. He decided to call his the FIFA Ultimate Team Journey or something like that, and I called mine the Road to Glory. A lot of our series at the time were called Road to Commander and stuff like that in COD, and that's kind of where the name Road to Glory came from. And it seems that the name has done well and it's still going today.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And so what have you been up to in the time between doing the YouTube stuff and being with us today?
So anyone who followed my journey, I went across to the States on a football scholarship. I completed my degree there and then did a year or half a year's coaching for the university that I was at. And then since then I've come back and started my own company in helping footballers or sportsmen to go over to America on sports scholarships like I did.
Great, that sounds really good. So our other guest today is WyseFIFA, and he's filling in for Foot Economist, who got minor concussion fighting market forces, apparently. He's also assisting Jamie with his work for Foothead, so comes armed with all his knowledge. How are you, Wise?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Good to be on as usual.
Great, really looking forward to hearing more from you later on the market, and I'm sure you're looking forward to submitting your Dynamite Discard, which I know you're a big fan of. I'm looking forward to bringing that back as well, actually. But first of all, why don't we do some quick fire questions for Sam? Right, Sam, favourite FIFA game?
FIFA 12.
5-star weak foot or 5-star skills?
Weak foot.
All-time favourite foot card?
Nene from FIFA 12.
Ooh, nice. AS Sigrinya or the Duck?
Ooh, the Duck.
Sausage sandwich or bacon butty?
Bacon butty.
MLS or Championship?
Championship.
And that's time's up. So very interesting that you went for the Duck there. I should probably fill in that the Duck and AS Sigrinya were very, very bad players who Sam picked up during these Road to Glory series and actually performed way, way better than they really should have. So I would say probably AS Sigrinya was probably slightly better, would you say? But the Duck just had this habit of getting these goals.
Yeah, so I don't think they were bad players. I think that's a little bit harsh to say.
Well, they're obviously way better than me. I'm not going to...
Yeah. Another funny story, actually, about that. Last year, I think AS, as his nickname was in the series, he got an inform in FIFA, and a bunch of people just started tweeting me the link to his inform. So, the legend never dies in this world.
So obviously back in those days, the Road to Glory was all about starting out with kind of no financial, sort of outside financial support, no FIFA points, just kind of starting from scratch, often with these kind of lower quality players and building things up. Is it quite different now how you tend to start your FIFA year, if you like, Sam?
I think that's like the core and the most fun way to play Ultimate Team is to build up your team. So I never, whack on hundreds of FIFA points at the start of the game and open packs. That's just not my style at all. In fact, most years I don't put in any FIFA points. Last year in particular, like FIFA18 gave you so many things to do to earn coins and to get the players that you wanted that you didn't need FIFA points at all. So I'm kind of going into this FIFA with the same mentality. With the EA access, I haven't even really been playing with my team. I've got a decent team just through trading. But I'll once again just be trying to build up to the bigger players using FUT champions and stuff like that.
And I have to say, one of the things that I find almost a shame about the way that I end up playing FUT now is I do tend to play draft because, it is like a really good bonus if you can get those decent packs, and then actually what you have to put into it compared with the amount you'd end up spending on all the packs is not too bad, and you're not going to spend a huge amount if you're just playing it, say, during EA Access or at the very start. But it is a shame because you end up using those players that in past years you perhaps never would have used until very late on in the game. If you look at previous FIFAs, for example, you wouldn't actually play with someone like Ronaldo until you bought him. And in fact, some years I'm not sure I ever did play with a Ronaldo. I think that is something that, I don't know, we kind of lost with draft. And that idea that when you're watching Road to Glories or you were taking in someone else's advice, you'd often kind of look to them because there was no other way of you trying that player in Ultimate Team. So it's a bit of a shame. I don't know what you think about that, Wise.
Yeah, no, drafts are definitely interesting. I was really enjoying Inform Aguero, and that's a card that's like already 1,000,000 coins. It's probably only going to go up. So you're right. It's weird that at the start of FIFA you can just be scrambling for thousands of coins, 10,000s of coins, and you can play this mode where you get to try the best players in FIFA. But I mean, of course, I think it's more interesting than not. But of course, the purist, the original, traditional Road to Glory would be ashamed about that. But other than that, I think as a whole, it's a solid option. Gives you a little bit more diversity in the game.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it would be strange for me to argue to remove a feature that just would would seem strange. But actually, even without draft, we would have seen, I think, this year a bit of a change in terms of how people can gain coins early on, because squad battles has been introduced. I'm not sure whether either of you have played squad battles. Have you?
I played 3 or 4 games with my EA access. I only used up my 10 hours. I didn't do the extra like a few people did, which I think once they got those extra hours, they really spammed the squad battles from what I've seen. But I mean, in terms of playing the computer, it's never been something that I've enjoyed. But to be honest, this year it's not that bad. It's probably not something I'll pursue that much on a weekly basis. Maybe a few games if I've got nothing else to do, just to maybe get the lower tier rewards. But it is a good option for other people to play, and if you're good at playing the computer and you enjoy it, then it's a great way to get rewards. I don't see any problem with adding it into the game. I think it's another good option.
Yeah, I mean, the offline offering was pretty poor, I suppose. Why did you manage to play at all, the squad battles?
Yeah, I played a couple games. I did focus mostly on online drafts, but I would second pretty much every point Sam made. I think it's a really good outlet. I know if I'm gonna be bruised in the weekend league, I might just focus a lot more time on trying to beat the AI instead of getting myself embarrassed. But the reward structures are insane, and I definitely think they're gonna have some good impacts on the market and really bring a community of people that weren't necessarily super into foot. So I think it's a good long-term play for EA and the community as a whole.
The only thing I'd say is that I think that the amount of time you have to put in to get decent rewards is actually going to be pretty big. If you imagine that you've got 4 games a day during the week, and then you've got 12 a day over the weekend, because it's like 3 batches of 4 that come out. I think 44 games a week, which seems quite a lot. I mean, you compare that to Weekend League itself is 40 games, and obviously the computer's not going to rage quit. You could potentially be looking at quite a sizable amount of time to get those top rewards. I think it really depends what everyone else is doing. Is everyone else playing it? In which case, the boundaries for getting the top tier rewards is going to go up.
Well, on that, do you think that like people will play one or the other, or do you think there'll be certain people that try and play all the games of both?
Well, I was thinking for pro players and things and people like that, you're almost going to, you're going to want to maximize the amount of coins your account has. So I wonder whether your pro players and things are going to play that. But then is that actually kind of I don't know, would that detract from their online practice?
Yeah, that's what I wondered. Like, how? I mean, I saw one of the American pro players.
Oh, Chris! Is it Chris?
Yeah, Chris. He came second, I think, in the weekly rankings.
Yeah, although the only thing was, I think he was on PlayStation, which means he was probably like one of the only people playing.
Oh, okay.
He must have had the game early. But yeah, I think you're right. The top players are obviously going to be good at playing the computer because they're good at the game. Like it's a natural thing. But you wonder whether there are certain like intricacies, habits you wouldn't want to pick up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just because like the computer, in my experience, I've always enjoyed playing like career mode and stuff, and so I try to slap on legendary towards the end of FIFA, and the computer just like has a knack for like knowing what skill move you're gonna do. So I feel like you kind of drop some parts of the game and then overemphasize other parts that the computer like lays back when you pass like a lot sometimes. So a player might press more, and so I think there are a couple of those specific things you were talking about that would get lost, and I always feel a little sluggish when I go from playing a lot of career mode back to foot. So I definitely could see that there could be, for like the average player especially, I'm not saying I'm a pro, that there could be some issues and fallbacks to just playing one or the other.
Yeah, and I wonder whether, I mean, this is maybe being cynical about it, but maybe it would make sense for them to employ someone to use the account, which I think is against the terms of service, so they wouldn't admit this, to play the offline games for the account of a pro player, so that they could gain the maximum rewards they could, and obviously make the best team possible as quickly as possible. Potentially interesting, although highly suspect.
Yeah.
Okay, so on this topic, I have a question. How do you guys see the rewards now coming on Monday with the squad battles and then the normal FUT weekly or FUT champion weekly rewards affecting the market as a whole with all of those extra coins coming onto the market?
Yeah, Wise, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's just gonna be one of those things where you saw players' prices dip just because packs are open, so more supply on those Thursday releases. And for squad builders, I mean, even what Monday night was last night when we were recording this, there were some really good like snipes on the market if you guys were on the market at that time. So I think that the Monday is not a time where a lot of the FIFA community is going to realize that rewards are being out at that time. So there's going to be like a minor dip there. Whereas traditional Thursday since last year, everybody knew that FUT Champions like monthly and weekly rewards were released. Then you saw a window of opportunity where a lot of prices dropped. But at the beginning of the game, that stuff's always finicky. There's a lot of inequalities in the market in terms of prices, so there's always gonna be a good time to buy. But definitely those times, two rewards, two chances for a lot of packs, a lot more coins in the market, players' prices are gonna dip and then rise in between. So it's gonna be a really interesting time to make a lot of coins on those days. I'm really looking forward to it personally. What do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is quite an interesting idea, and the only thing I wonder is actually it may not have as big an impact because they seem to release like during the night, so the effects might be spread out a bit more. I don't know, because obviously in the UK it's 1 a.m, so many people won't be able to pick them up at that time.
Yeah, I guess that's better for the people in North America, like in the States or in Asia if you're playing. But it's definitely an interesting thing. I mean, you guys said you played squad battles. What were your guys' rewards like specifically?
Yeah, well, I ended up getting Elite, and actually I think that's 2 mega packs and 40,000 coins, I think. And I have to say, I didn't play anywhere near all my games, but bear in mind, because of EA Access, it means that not as many people will be playing and not being able to play so many games, so that will obviously come into it. But I think I maybe only played about 20 games or so, but I played on world class and would win maybe like, at least I'd score 5 goals every game. So that obviously gives you quite a decent not coin boost, but point boost. But I have to say, 2 mega packs and 40,000 coins. If in future you're going to need to play 44 games, as I was saying, that's really not, I don't think, a good use of your time. Certainly if you're any good at the game and feel you can do okay in Weekend League.
Yeah, I only played 4 games, so I don't even know what my rewards are. I haven't even opened them yet. I'm sure they're not too great, but I don't know. If you're not that good at FUT Champions or you don't want to commit on weekends, I think listen to the rewards you got. Like, you can play during the week and spread out your time. So I mean, if you can put up with playing the computer, and I think it is a bit more tolerable this year. They don't like just play possession football. It kind of seems a little bit more realistic to playing an actual human. I think you can, if you're not going to commit to the FUT Champions, you can still get good rewards out of it. It seems like, based on what you said, 40,000 coins is always good. I mean, you can do a lot of damage with 40,000 coins each week.
Yeah. No. Yeah, maybe I'm just kind of comparing it to what you get for Gold 1 Elite 3 in FUT Champs. But, that is pretty tough. And you can't pause the game and walk away and come back in FUT Champs. And, of course, you've got to play them over the weekend. So, I don't know. The only thing I was disappointed with is if you're trying to make it something people can play all week, why would you then make it so that people have to play 12 games on a Saturday and 12 on a Sunday, whereas you're playing 4 on weekdays? It just seems like a bit of like they aren't really changing the format as much. If they'd made it so that the weekend was not the focus of that particular mode, then maybe that would have made slightly more sense. But yeah, if you're playing squad battles and you're enjoying it, if you think it's a great alternative to FUT Champs, then get in touch, and we would love to hear your comments for next week's podcast. Let's move back to what we're talking about doing in EA Access. Let's talk about draft quickly, actually, because I don't tend to play draft throughout the year, but did play it as part of my EA Access time. Many PlayStation players will probably be looking to play draft as the first thing they do when they come to the game. Sam, what did you make of it? I think actually, first of all, before I ask you that, let's get an idea of what kind of caliber of player you are. I think I saw that you'd beat or maybe tied with a pro player last year on Twitter, so you're probably a pretty solid player. But what kind of record did you get last year, for example?
Well, that tweet I think you're talking about, I played against Gorilla, the world champion.
Oh wow, yeah. In fact,
And
okay.
I was actually beating him 2-1 at one stage in the game before my keeper decided to slap a ball between his legs and into the goal. And this was actually on his stream, and he commented on this. And then I think he went on to win 3-2. It was a fairly even game, but you could like tell, he's a very good player. He had a very good team. I think I had Lacazette and Griezmann up front, and he had like Ruud Gullit and everybody, his all-star team. But the best finish I got last year was 35. That was actually that same weekend as well. But I kind of averaged Elite 3, Elite 2 was my normal finish. And in terms of this FIFA on the draft, I've won it a few times, but lost a few times in the final, taken a few heavy hits. But I've only played about 20 games, so 5 or 6 drafts. Didn't play too many this yet on this FIFA.
That's very impressive. I mean, in fact, it'd be interesting to hear what do you think of the gameplay this year? Are you, compared with last year, do you think you'll be able to kind of reach that height again? Are you confident in your defensive ability so far?
I mean, I've taken a couple of heavy beatings, and I didn't rage too much from them because I feel like I was losing to just a superior player, which maybe last year you might lose a game by 2 or 3 and they have 2 or 3 shots and it's just kind of the counter-attacking play. The defensive play this year, like I don't mind it. Like, it's more of a challenge. It's a lot more of trying to read the opponent, trying to be one step ahead of what he's going to do. So it's a lot of right stick flicking, making sure you switch to the play you want, timing your tackles well, jockeying, which I think adds a lot more skill to the game and kind of gets rid of that or increases the skill gap. But yeah, I think it's fun. Like I said, I haven't really raged too much playing any of the games, even the games I've lost. I felt like it was deserved. I learned from those players. In particular, some of the formations, if you play draft, that's a good thing to do earlier on, is to get a grip of some of the formations, some of the players, what kind of attributes work, what kind of things work in the game, what formations work against which formations. And one of the standout formations that I played, some guy beat me like 5-2, I think. He was playing the 4-4-2 flat. Yeah. And that formation, I've used it since, and I went all the way and won the draft, and you can really control the game. I thought it was good, actually. Yeah, I used it as well. Yeah. It's like an interesting one because in previous FIFAs, it's just not been like usable at all because it's kind of too spread out. This one, the positioning of the players seems a lot better both offensively and defensively. I don't know if you guys agree on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. I was going to second that. I also have been dabbling a lot in the drafts, and my favorite formation was that 4-4-2. And I think it really speaks testament to how you can really tailor your team nowadays with the instructions. I was chatting with Ben the other day, and he was talking about the instructions he used in one of his teams to bring one of the strikers to a false 9. And so, I mean, I know it turns into a little bit of a 4-4-1-1 there, but at the same time, it's given the 4-4-2 a new dynamic that I think it's lacked in the past. In the past, it's always been super static, and it's been really easy to break the lines of midfield to defense and get in behind. And so you'd be traditionally just sitting there with 2 center backs and the guys 3 attackers or however many attackers. But this year, if you really change those instructions, you can have those guys sit back and offer a pretty solid defensive shield at the same time, have some really good outlets up. And personally, I always like 2 striker formations better, but it was a really standout, I would say, most improved formation I've used so far. I'm really looking forward to adapting it to a real team this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And actually, I wonder whether, Sam, you might have a view on this. I felt that instructions seem to do a bit more. Like when I told us right back or left back to stay back, they seem to stay back. It's kind of something I noticed across all modes, I guess. But in the draft, I did play with instructions a bit, and they seem to do something.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that you can more experiment with this year. Last year, it was kind of the standard left back, right back, stay back, central midfielder, stay back, your forwards getting behind, press the back line. It was just like a generic thing that worked the same for every 4-1-2-1-2 or 4-3-1-2. But I think this year, a lot more formations are useful. And there's a lot more effective play styles and formations that you can use with certain player instructions. So I think you can do a lot of experimenting with your own players to get the kind of football style that you want to play in the game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Sorry, just to go back to drafts properly quickly. And there are a few things that I wanted to raise, and I wonder whether there are things that you've spotted. But there are a lot of stuff that I feel like I was hoping they'd fix. It hasn't really changed since its release. And one thing I'd like to kind of raise especially is the 4-2-3-1 formation. So the one with the 3 cams. It just seems entirely kind of pointless picking the formation. The players you get are always way worse than if you pick a formation with wingers. You may get some good wingers on the bench, but then you'd have to sub them in. And just because the nature of the fact that obviously most of the best players are sort of wingers like Ronaldo and Messi, etc., your chances of getting them are much lower, and you can't play them in your first team, so you're already taking a kind of chemistry hit to get the top players in. But also, it doesn't. The way the algorithms are set, it doesn't think about that and sort of change the quality of player you get in the cam position, or give you more cams on the bench, or at least centre mids or centre forwards, which just seems like a kind of significant oversight, I suppose. And I guess it's a good warning to people who are planning to play draft on release. Don't pick the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-2-2-2-2, in fact, which also has the 2 cams. Slightly frustrating that, but that's just been one of my bugbears for a while. I don't know whether that's something you guys have found frustrating.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just jump in here real quick. I had a draft, and I think it actually was like one of the 4-4-2 or the 4-4-2 draft, and I've noticed over my course of my drafts that all my super subs were like left wingers, and it's like how many times am I going to get a left winger? I think the most times I had to like choose a left winger or a right winger, I had like 5 on my bench, and then I was playing 2. And it was just insane. Like, I mean, I love Mane and Salah, but at the same time, like, come on, where's the Aubameyang?
Yeah, and the other thing which is links with that actually is I always find, well, almost always find with the draft, you get maybe like 1 or 2 strikers. So you're going through like the bench, you got this terrible striker, it'll maybe offer you 1 other striker if you're lucky. So that's like slightly frustrating as well. Maybe some people are just less concerned about it. I don't know, maybe Sam, you're not so bothered about that, but
I mean, a couple of things like what you kind of mentioned there. I think one, to begin with, it's kind of disappointing that they didn't add in something where you can have like a winger can play in a cam position or a cam can play in a winger position, some kind of position change, or maybe each card comes with a primary position and a secondary position that you can switch between the two, because then that just gets rid of that problem straight away in the draft, but also in other game modes where you might want to play the 4-2-3-1, but you have to change in game, which is, you know, a pain to do and kind of cheating the game mechanics, which isn't, I guess, that great for purists and that kind of stuff. And then the second point is with the draft, like I kind of agree. They haven't improved it in a way that it's too stale. That you either make a Premier League team or a La Liga team, and that's all you constantly play against, and that's all you constantly build. And I don't know. They need to find. I mean, obviously, you do get to play with some really good players, but they need to find a way to mix that up. Maybe get rid of chemistry in draft mode or something like that, so you can just bring in a bunch of different players together. I don't know. Have you guys got any ideas how they could change that?
I think the position thing is a really big one. I think maybe when you select a player, you should be able to like pick their position as well. It would be nice to have some kind of variation so you can make use of all the formations and also make a team with slightly better chemistry, possibly, because I always find that every now and again, whether that's centre back or goalkeeper or something, you end up with like a position which is actually like hugely problematic and almost guarantees that like you will struggle. And maybe, I don't know, if you're very good, it won't matter. You'll probably beat all your opponents. But at least by the time you get towards the semi-final and final, you end up in a very kind of a compromised position because of the quality of your team and the chemistry, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I suppose that's part of the process. You know, you've got to pick the team.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to be playing with that 47 pace center back the whole time just because you had to get 100 chem.
Yeah, exactly. Combining 2 topics of the draft and formations, one formation that I was really surprised by because it was so ineffective last year is I used the 3-5-2 for a draft, and it was actually surprisingly effective. Did either of you use a 3-back?
I think I used the 3-4-2-1, which was pretty good, but obviously defensively it wasn't great with the 2 centre mids. But I didn't use the 3-5-2.
The other thing is I had You know Bruno Perez, the Roma right back, Brazilian guy,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
one of the right mids, and he was obviously pretty good defensively. He's actually got a low defensive work rate, so I had to come back on defense on him. But the team that I had was decent, but the centre backs weren't amazing. But what I realised is because the centre backs were so bad, I just had to like go high pressure and just like really push for it and make sure that they weren't getting the centre backs, and it seemed to work really well. I think because how difficult people are finding defending and how easy it is to score goals. I basically just was like, okay, well, they're going to score, but I'll just get more goals. And it seemed to
Nice.
work quite effectively. Actually, was quite impressed. But yeah, I'd have to try it out more. But with better centre backs, and I had a terrible goalkeeper as well, so it could actually be quite viable. And listeners should let us know if they've used that three back and found it effective. Actually,
Yeah, no, I haven't played with 352, Ben, but if we're talking about it, I plan on trying to adopt something like that. I think if you're going to do that, the Italian league is definitely a place to start with that. I mean, you mentioned Bruno Perez, but they have a bunch of other like, cheap players, and I was just going to experiment with this squad. You got the likes of like Conti, and it's been like they have a good left back, left mid. I can't remember his name, but those high defensive stats I think could be really useful because it seems that like the right mid and left mid that have good defensive stats also have better like passing than some left backs and right backs. So
that's very true.
you could
Yeah.
you could really utilize their crossing ability, and at the same time they provide just as good defensive cover as your budget left back and right backs.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, one thing that I've noticed in terms of like different stats being important at different positions is, Caceres, Martin Caceres.
Yeah.
He actually has one of the highest agility stats for a centre back in the game. He's not that quick this year. He's like 74 pace, but I stuck anchor on him because I was quite interested to see whether that made a difference, because it is quite difficult to defend dribbly players because centre backs just seem super clunky to move. So I found that with his higher agility, he was actually quite effective at defending in 1v1 situations. So maybe that's something people want to consider. And if you're going to play for three back, I'd kind of strongly recommend picking centre backs who can kind of manoeuvre themselves. You're going to have to defend quite a few one-on-one situations. Sam, you've obviously got quite far in the draft. Did you find you could defend people running at you effectively? Like, did you have any tips that you kind of came up with when you were playing?
I think like the best way to defend, like I said, is to try and be ahead of the game. So try and predict where the opponent's going and be waiting for him when he gets there. So you can use the jockey, and the sprint jockey is really good on the wing if you hold the left trigger and right trigger together. That's pretty effective this year. I mean, I think the main problem with defending is the inability to pressure in like the middle third. Passing is so effective in the middle third that it kind of just goes from one side of the pitch to the other, and it's really hard to make an interception in that area. I think that's why people are struggling with defending, because they're just getting caught in one-on-one situations, a striker against their centre back, and the way the right bumper or the no-touch dribbling works this year, I mean, you can just get destroyed pretty easily on one button press if you're in that situation. So I don't know whether it's defending is like the AI is that bad. I think it's just the pressure in that area makes more of those situations occur, and then obviously the goalkeepers are just, they might as well not even be there because every shot pretty much goes in at this point.
Yeah, let's discuss that bit actually, because one of the things that I've noticed is quite interesting. Yes, low driven works. Most shots seem to work, but I got like destroyed by Shevchenko in one game. This guy just kept powering it across the keeper, like with a standard powered shot, and it would go into like the middle of the goal, towards the edge of the goal, but it wasn't kind of that tucked into the corner. So it's like a cross keeper, but like decent height, and that seemed to go in like every time. And you just think that is the kind of shot where a keeper, if they're worth their salt or a half decent, should be kind of saving. I don't know, Mitchell, did you?
Yeah, definitely. I was just about to jump in on that. The finesse shots from the top of the box, like it almost echoes FIFA 12 if we're gonna get on that topic. But the keeper animations for some of them are just ridiculous, because I know that for a while the people that have been playing EA Access have been trying to determine if it was like the attacking AI or the attackers just got so much better, or if the goalkeepers got so much worse. And I'm leaning more towards the latter. Like my goalkeepers would fall backwards when someone would take a finesse shot from outside the box. I don't know if you guys have seen that animation, but it's like when they go to like dive to save it to like save a relatively top corner shot, they just actually go straight back. It's something that seems so unnatural, but at the same time is so frustrating. And I know that the near post also can be a little bit of an issue for keepers this year. So, I mean, of course, all areas to exploit if you're trying to get some shots in, but pot shots this year seem to go in a lot more than usual, and I think that that is definitely just because of some keeper mechanics. Have you guys found any keepers that have been particularly good though, or anything you might look out for keepers in this game?
Actually, yes. The best keeper that I've used, again on draft, so I don't think anybody can really afford or get him now, but one to look for in the future is the Russian icon
Oh my
Yashin.
God.
Like,
He was so good.
yeah, like he is like a god compared to the rest of the keepers in the game. The rest of the keepers don't save anything, and this guy saves everything. So if you ever get him in the draft, I recommend getting him in first position on the team sheet.
Yeah, it's funny because I think one of the first game I played was a draft where I had him in it, and I was like, oh, that's good, they fixed keepers. And then of course, playing a couple of games later, I realised that, yeah, they hadn't. It was just Lev Yashin's just amazing. I don't think it was even his best version. Were you using his very best card or just...
No, I think I was using the lowest one, so...
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I think it was his 89.
Yeah, it's 89, yeah.
Yeah, no, he is really good. But to be fair, I did use De Gea, and I thought he was perhaps better than most of the others. So maybe there is a bit of an argument that, better keepers are better, but...
I think there might be a little bit of a gap too, because like anything from like maybe 85 down or it is bad, because like I used Petr Cech and he was also like standing on his head for pretty much every game. Like he would just make some incredible saves, and so I think this year it might be really important to get that elite tier of goalkeepers, where in the past you could just stick in whoever.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Maybe that is a bit of a difference. I mean, I don't envy EA in trying to sort out goalkeeping because it is AI controlled entirely, so it's a bit of a weird situation. One thing that people might like to know, which means that your goalkeeper isn't entirely AI controlled, is they've actually added a thing where you can tell your goalkeeper to cover the far post. Did either of you see this going around?
No, I had no idea that was even in the game.
So yeah, what you do is you press the right stick inwards, and that's on PlayStation or Xbox. And when you do that, your keeper kind of shuffles towards the far post, and that basically means that although the near post is open, if the player tries a cross-body shot, they'll save it. It's a really weird thing that nobody's been talking about, apart from Ivan, aka Boris Legend, put out a video explaining this. I think he managed to pick it up off one of the devs at the capture event. But yeah, really interesting and worth a go. It does work, I've tried it, but I haven't tested out too much online yet. I was trying it in squad battles, which the computer can read quite well because it obviously knows what you're doing all the time. So it just smashed it in near post. But I think online it would be very effective because people won't really notice that movement. So yeah, no, definitely worth trying that out and let us know if it's effective for you.
What's happening, boys? It is Wayback HD here, and you're listening to the Foot Weekly podcast.
Right, well, it's a very interesting time for traders. Let's talk about what we think is going to happen with the market over the next couple of days. Obviously, 29th is full release, but we've got the kind of early access period starting on the 26th as well.
Yeah, just to tackle those two big dates, so the Tuesday with the icon or pre-early access, and then the 29th with the full game. For both consoles, that's going to be a day where there's an influx of new players, and these new players will often be opening a lot of packs. I mean, they should get return packs if they haven't opened them on the web app, or in general, people love to load up the FIFA points and open a lot of packs. So you could really be finding a lot of good deals, because expect the market to dip a little bit on those days and prices for a short period of time, probably around the 6 p.m. UK time, like into 8 p.m. UK time. Those are really good times to find a lot of deals on the market. And that's especially true of on the 29th. The players' prices seem to drop a little. So if you're watching a couple players or you're looking for the best time to buy a team, those are two of the really best shouts, because players' prices will rebound after that. And after those days, if anything, they'll just go up. And so just to touch on the differences, the Xbox market and the PS4 market, it seems that players' prices are generally more expensive on the Xbox market right now. But the fact that PS4 has the icons and stuff, has icons and doesn't lack any certain features, expect the prices to eventually be the same. So if you're looking for some good investment strategies in the PS4 market, you should be able to take some Xbox prices with a grain of salt to see where some of those players are going to end up. I know that a couple people on Twitter, I think get this guy like Gummy FIFA and stuff like that, they do a good job of showing or comparing the prices. And so some of your higher rated players, your OP players, if you will, such as your Semedo, Alejandro Gomez, and even better than that, like your Socrates, their player prices on PS4 are much lower. And on Xbox, they're stable, or not necessarily stable, they're stably rising, I should say. So go ahead and look to make some sound investments in those. And personally, the best investment tip I can give is pick the high rated players you want to invest, or that you want to invest and play with in the game this year. Hopefully you have the capital to do that, but it's always easier to hang on to cards for investments when you're playing with them. I know that I kind of have a tendency to have these players and they're burning a hole in my pocket, so I sell them maybe a little bit before I should. So a little tip for investors there is just pick the players that you're going to want to play with and put them in a side so that you can keep them for their maximum time and also enjoy them at the same time. But those were the two big points. I think that we're going to see some interesting stuff with the market this year. And even though the game hasn't released for PS4, expect their prices to rise. And for Xbox, making sure you're looking out to snag some good bid or some good buy nows on the 26th and the 29th. Have you guys had any luck with some web app trading or anything like that?
I did a little bit of trading on the web app. I just, generic, putting on mass bids on some rare golds, selling them for more, picking up a few consumables for when the weekend league hits, just generic stuff like that kind of everyone's doing. And while you've got the early access, you've got a good window to pick those things up before the main release. But that's it for me, really. Few investments in some informs, nothing too heavy.
Great, so let's move on to some listener questions. You can send your listener questions in, footweekly@mail.com, or tweet us. You can do that at footweeklypod. And this first question comes in from Jatzel, and he asks if any players you bought that you thought would be good turned out to be quite a disappointment. Sam, why don't you take this first?
So again, not from much experience, but a couple of players come straight to mind. Griezmann actually was somebody I was really looking forward to playing with because of the new animations for the no-touch dribbling. I thought he'd be really good. Last year he was a really good player, but I didn't have too much luck with him in a draft. And the other player was Marco van Basten. I used one of his icon cards, and he was just really, really weak, and I just couldn't get anything going with him. So they were the two players that, in terms of high-rated expectancy, just didn't perform for me.
Yeah, I totally agree on Griezmann, actually. He was a bit of a disappointment. It's quite interesting because Dybala was pretty good for me, so I'm not sure what that was about. Wise, aka Mitchell, what do you think? Have you got any players that disappointed you slightly?
Yeah. I also been playing drafts too. So from some of like the elite players, I guess you will, that I've had a little struggle with. Honestly, Salah, nothing but like just for the one reason that his shooting has let me down a ton. I don't think that might also be a little bit of a user error, but if we're just going to talk about player preferences, for some reason, I would always be able to get to the line with him, to the byline with his pace is great, but I could never just actually finish it off with him. So a player like that was just a bit of a disappointment for me.
That's quite interesting. I actually found, weirdly, Ronaldo, as in R9, a slight disappointment. Like I don't know, he didn't feel as agile as I'd expected. I couldn't maneuver him quite as well as I'd kind of thought. But he was obviously ridiculous. Like, he is an insane, really, really good player. But I thought actually I enjoyed using Informed Dybala more, but maybe it's just the type of player I normally use. He feels kind of bulky, and although that's good, and I like using that in some regards, he didn't feel like I could maneuver him quite as well as I'd expected. I don't know, maybe you guys found him very good, but yeah.
No, I think like with Ronaldo, I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, he just seems to have a different player style than we're used to. I think it's kind of, maybe it is just for him, his own kind of player in the game, but moving him around the pitch isn't that great. But as soon as you get an opportunity to shoot, or he shoots against you, it's just a goal every time. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, every time. I'd have to say that coming up against him, he was my biggest nightmare. In the draft, he would score from just ridiculous angles. Anytime, it felt like anytime the person pressed B, that ball was in the top net. But playing with him, I'd have to echo what you said, Ben. He did feel a little bit sluggish for me, and I personally couldn't get him in the position to shoot. But again, I think that might just be a little user error at the beginning, because once he gets a shot, man, it's lights out.
Yeah, no, definitely true. So A question that's kind of not about starting out here, but Nick asks, why do many foot players play a huge amount of games every year, but then actually end up with pretty average squads? Like, what are they spending their coins on? He asks. Wise, as a sort of trader investor, what do you think? Where do you think the average player kind of goes wrong and doesn't build up the coins?
Yeah, honestly, I might just have to look to some of my friends for examples, I guess, just some of the casual foot players. They might play it a lot, but I know that there's one syndrome where people have where they just love to buy packs. Like, they just can't get over the pack, like the pack thing. And honestly, as the game goes on, the packs, like especially gold packs, are not necessarily worth it. So I think that that's one pitfall for players that have that are average players that just play a ton of games and might not have good teams, is because they just spend it all in packs anyways and hope for that one good pull. And then another thing, we're talking a lot about drafts, and I have a lot of friends that actually like draft the most because they don't think that they'll ever be able to trade up to being able to play with Ronaldo and Messi and like a team of the season or a legend in their front attack, like a Ronaldo. And so they actually just play divisions with an average team and focus on spending their coins in drafts so that they can play with those elite players more often, I guess. So that's another little area, I think. I think those could just be some simple areas. And also maybe just Nick's coming up against players that are playing with their fitness teams instead of their big squads.
Yeah, I suppose, maybe they don't have the big boys out. So let's take a break, and it's been quite a long first half, but we'll get into the team of the week, give it a little rundown, and we'll chat about our reviews, and we'll also pick out some Dynamite Discards as part of that as well. So we'll see you very shortly. We won't see you, of course, as a podcast, but catch you in a bit. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Foot Weekly podcast, and we're still joined by WyseFIFA and Sam 5000 as well. First thing to discuss, I think we're about to get into the team of the week, but they've changed the way that they're going to do upgrades this year. A number of the silver cards have actually been bumped straight up to gold cards. So previously you would have had a 75 rated silver inform, and now they've gone straight up to sort of 76, 77 rated gold inform cards. Sam, first of all, what are your thoughts on this? Are you positive about it or not?
No, I think it's a good move. Gets some better cards into the game early. I've never really used silver cards, and there's no real need for silver cards in the game because there's no game mode where they're really that useful. So it just gets some better cards into the game early. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wise, what do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, part of me is hurt. I've always loved the silver informs for trading. I guess we'll still have some silver informs, but silver and bronze informs for trading were always interesting markets. And at the same time, I guess if you always could find like a nice hidden gem within those, you felt really accomplished. But at the same time, I didn't really use silver or bronze last year either. So it's not sad to see them go if it's pushing FIFA into a more competitive realm. At least some of these gold players you'll be able to play more with, I guess. You'll be more useful.
It's interesting. I think long-term followers of the podcast will know I'm about to moan about this because I thought it was excellent that they added in like a silver weekend league requirement last year. I brought out a couple of really interesting silver informs, or in fact there was one man in the match I used as well. And the fact that you could get these like really high caliber 74 rated players with the stats of like a player that was better, surely it doesn't really matter that they're not rated like 76 or 77, like they had the same stats, so I don't see them being that much less competitive. But then also you can't use those if they do those requirements again, and even worse, it might suggest that they're just going to move away from like doing anything involving silver or bronze players, which would be I think a bit of a disappointment. But maybe that's being a bit of a traditionalist. Maybe most people won't mind about that, but it would be a bit sad. And I think the interesting thing is going to be for weekend league rewards, because now you've got loads of crappy gold players to fill out those packs. I mean, you might end up getting quite a few of these in your Team of the Week pack. Sam, for example, I mean, you obviously would have got a few of those Team of the Week packs. I doubt you'd like to see many of these players as your rewards for playing all weekend long.
I mean, to be honest, last year when I was getting the Elite 3 rewards, they were probably about this standard anyway, so not much is going to change there.
I
but
suppose it'd be discarded in any case, wouldn't it? So.
yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I mean, I do agree in a way. I think the main problem, or something they need to do, is just come up with a way to make silver and bronze cards more playable and more usable, like something more often. Like you said last year, the silver FUT champion weekend, I thought that was good too. I enjoyed the like bit of diversity there, but I mean, it's once or twice they did that last year. So in a whole year, it's like those cards don't have anything until that weekend. I think they need to find a way to make the cards more useful, or if they're not, like it seems, then go with this method of just making them straight into golden forms.
Either that, or they just completely messed up the ratings this week and have decided to just go with it. So we'll have to see. But yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how rewards pan out, because they do look like they're the same as last year. So if you look at the schedule, it shows that, and etc. It looks like they're not going to change. So it's a bit strange, but we'll see what happens. Should we get into the team of the week then? Do you want to just kick us off first of all, Wise, with your pick? Because it is quite an interesting player, someone who's he's a kind of whipping boy of the Premier League for a while, but he's certainly reinvigorated his career.
Yeah, the 86 rated Falcao. I mean, El Tigre, the guy that went from having it all to really nothing at Chelsea and United, if you will. But I think that he's really had a good resurgence this year. This inform card is a pick that I'm making this year that wouldn't be as traditional, because his pace, of course, might scare some people away. But besides that, he's an 86 overall inform that you can pick up for like 35 something K in the Xbox market. I haven't checked his PS4 price, sorry guys, but he's got, of course, really great stats that I think will make him a solid striker this year. And I'm always interested to see, with the way that heading and crossing has gone this year, I think he'd be a really good asset for that. I mean, considering that's what he's always really been known for. He's got some like 95 jumping, 95 heading, which is really solid for that. And then 91 finishing. I think that he could be a player where if you get him in the right position in a build-up play, if you're like slow-up builder play, he'll be able to hold the ball. And if you get him on the top of the box, he'll be able to put that shot away, I mean, more often than not. And just from an investment standpoint, an 86 overall inform at the beginning of the game with the Legend Squad Builder Challenges looming means that he could be a really solid investment, because these players' prices could shoot up if the requirement requires special players and has a high team requirement to get those prime icons. And people that have that money to get those guys anyways are going to be paying whatever they will. So you could see a very high ceiling for these players' prices. And the players that will be trying to do those SBCs, those prime icon SBCs, will have unlimited funds. And so this guy could have a very high price ceiling. And the last little bit I'll mention as I'm babbling on here is that he is Colombian and he is Liga. So, I mean, there's some really good options there to make a little hybrid between the likes of like La Liga. You can link him up with Muriel, who I heard is a cheap beast this game, really OP. So there's a lot of good ways to get him involved in some really solid squads this year.
Yeah, and you've also got James Rodriguez, who's in at Bayern as well. So that's very interesting.
Right. Yeah, perfect.
He's got, doesn't he have something like, I think, 80 high 80s agility? So that's going to be really good as well. I mean, people forget that he's actually, considering his age, a fairly nippy player. Maybe his dribbling isn't so good, but I think he's a really well-rounded striker, and with the right chem style, I think you're looking at a very solid card. So yeah, a good pick to start us off. So the other players in there, just a more general look at them. Obviously, you've got the big boys in this team of the week: Aguero, Mertens, Dybala. I mean, they all look fantastic, and not many players are going to get the chance to play with those guys, apart from in draft at the early stage of the game. You've got some kind of interesting Premier League players, actually, in Valencia and Mustafi. Both very good defenders, and probably the kind of players that people will be looking to pick up in a couple of weeks, or maybe even a week or two time, when they've got a bit more coinage. So potentially, I suppose, good investments. Fabianski, also good. I don't really see, he's got some good stats, but I don't know whether people will be that interested in using him at this stage. Spending money on an inform goalkeeper, probably not what people are going to be wanting to do at this point. You've also got Perez, and he looks like a really outstanding card. Looks a lot like Enzo Perez. I don't think they're related, but this is Pablo Perez. Very similar stats, very, very nippy and solid defensive midfielder. And I think there's a player who looks quite similar, actually, that Sam, you were thinking of picking out yourself.
Yeah, that player is Aranguiz. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it, but he's the Chilean central midfielder from Bayer Leverkusen. And in a pretty cool little comparison that I saw this week was his card compared to the regular 87 Ericsson. If you compare their base stats, Aranguiz has 79 pace to Eriksen's 75, 83 dribbling to Eriksen's 84, 78 shooting, both of them. He has slightly better defending, and slightly better physical, and then Eriksen obviously has one better passing than him. So it's a very similar card. If anything, you could say it's actually better. And Eriksen is going for a lot more than him right now. He's currently 10 to 15k on the Xbox market. I actually picked up a few of them as an investment because I think he will rise. I'm not too sure if he's going to get that many more informs. And his card, when people actually realize and break it down, is a lot better than people think. And also he's got a few good links in the Bundesliga, obviously straight to Vidal, which is a good link. And you can also hybrid him into the Prem with Alexis Sanchez once you get the coins for him. I think he's a good cheap midfielder that can do a bit of damage in this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And he does have things like quite high stamina. He's obviously got good pace. So he looks like kind of your archetypal all-round midfielder, doesn't he? And then obviously you've got all these players that we were talking about, which are very low rated and possibly not really usable. Well, they're usable, but there's always going to be a better option. It'd be slightly strange to pick them up. But that being said, no doubt they're going for pretty much discard. So if you wanted to make some investments, it would probably be a good idea. Perhaps with the increase in inform cards is suggesting we might see an earlier inform requirement SPC, which we did see a little bit later on last year, actually. Down on the reserves, we've got a guy who I think would be quite interesting to chat to you both about with your knowledge of MLS football. Martinez, the Atlanta striker, looks really, really good. It's such a shame he's going to be really, really difficult to link. Yeah, but Wise, what are your thoughts on him? I'm quite interested to try him out, actually.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, he seems that he's got some ridiculous stats that I think can make him really OP in this game, because something I noticed was that attackers usually do get the benefit of the doubt when making the runs in behind the defense, and with his pace and his finishing ability on this card, he could be a really good shout. And Atlanta, in real life, Atlanta's just been scoring goals for fun. I think he scored something like 6 goals in like 2 games or something like that. That was insane. And they're doing really well. So hopefully he can pick up another inform. But in terms of linkability, I know you touched that real quick. You got the likes of Almiron, the Paraguayan like center attacking mid that also has ridiculous stats for a player, like really good. And by ridiculous stats, I mean really high pace for those out there that are wondering. And he's also got a link to a silver beast, Villalba, I believe is how you say his name.
Yeah,
this dude
yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, he's also been scoring screamers for fun in the MLS. I think he scored a really good goal actually last night they played. So he could be a good, little tricky shout there. But I agree, the linkability besides those couple of players I mentioned could drag him down.
And we've also got a few others. There you've got Philip, the Dortmund player, Bakambu, who looks very good actually. No doubt he'll be worth a pretty penny because of his pace. He actually looks quite similar to Martinez, perhaps with slightly better shooting. And then we've got a guy that I'm going to talk about for my informed impression, so I won't bring him up here just to get a bit more suspense going. But yeah, I think I know we've missed a few players, but I think that's the team of the week in a nutshell. How would you guys rate it? Let's give it an arbitrary out of 10. Sam, what do you think?
For the first one, we'll give it a 7. Some big players in there.
What do you think, Wise?
I'm going to give it a 7.5, just to top Sam a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to rate it similarly, probably like a 7.4, just to not go out too much on a limb like Wise has there. It looks good. I think there's plenty of interesting options to be getting on with, plenty of investments, plenty of cards that people who want to use. So yeah, pretty good. But yeah, so let's move on to something that I'm pretty excited about bringing back. It's Dynamite Discards. I don't know whether Sam, yourself, I know you've been playing a lot of draft, but are there any players that you've been using can potentially bring in some Dynamite informs? But I think that at this stage we want players that are under about 1,000 coins. Have you got anyone in mind, Sam?
Yeah, so I've been playing draft, but I've been putting together my starter team, and I've gone for the Calcio A. And there's a couple of central midfielders in there that I'm starting to play a 4-1-2-1-2, the narrow formation. I'm kind of just sticking to the FIFA 16 or 17 route and going with that. So both these players have high work rates, and both of them have at least 90 stamina. The first one is Hetimaj, who's a Finnish player, and the other one is Lulic, who's a Bosnian player for Lazio. And both of them kind of have well-rounded stats in terms of pace, dribbling, physical and passing, which you kind of want for that central midfield. But they also have the good stamina and the good work rate. So they're both two beasts to get in your starter squad.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Sam's Serie A or Calcio A, shout. I have a creative center attacking mid in that league. He's a little gold rare. His name is Cicciaretti. He plays for Benevento, the newly promoted team in the Serie A, but he's got base card stats to look out. He's got 86 pace and 76 dribbling for a 75 card. It's really good, coupled with he's a technical dribbler and flair, so if you guys are looking to beat players off of skills this year, he's got the 4-star skills moves as well, and he just seemed really fluid in game for me, and he's got decent stamina for a center attacking mid spot. I mean, his physical may deter some people, but that's just because he's got low jumping and stuff, but you don't expect that from a creative center attacking mid. But other than that, he's got some really good shooting stats and some really solid dribbling stats that could really make him a useful player getting in behind the back lines of players.
Yeah, no,
this year.
He sounds really good. I think wingers are going to be important this year. I know you've gone for your narrow formation, Sam, but I do think that hopefully we'll see a bit more wing play this year. But I suppose the best FIFA is one that takes in all kinds of formations and multiple formations are effective. So we'll have to see.
Right.
Alex Tellez is actually going to be my Dynamite discard. His card, if in any other league, I don't think would be Dynamite discard at all. I think he'd be quite expensive actually. Maybe still Dynamite, of course, but just not discard. The thing about this guy is he's initially, you look at him and he's got quite low strength. He's about 64, but when you put anchor on him, you get 74 strength, which is perfectly usable. But he's actually quite agile. He's good on the ball. He's 5'11", so he's got decent size to him, so he doesn't feel weak. And then of course you've got fairly solid defensive stats for a good attacking fullback, and then good pace as well. So he's a very well-rounded player, and I think if you can work him into your team, which shouldn't be too hard because he's Brazilian, you're looking at a really, really good left back for a very reasonable price. He's also got, I think it's a technical dribbler, so that really helps going forward. He's got a good cross on him, which, as we know, is more effective this year. And I actually found his partner, Ricardo Pereira, who plays on the right side of defence, is also excellent, and both together have been a really, really solid duo that I think would do well in any kind of decent weekend league team, to be honest. Oh. So finally, just to finish it off, I think we'll pick a particular player out from that team of the week who I've actually used and should be, I think, pretty outstanding all year. He's a centre defensive mid, and he plays for Porto. Danilo Pereira, who I found very effective last year. The thing about this card is that he will really hold his position well, and I think that's something that I've noticed more in this game, with the instructions maybe doing a better job, with players holding their position slightly better than in previous years. His pace is maybe not exposed so much. He's got 70 pace, and with engine he is not slow, but with that kind of body type and that pace, you probably don't want him wandering around too much. But he's unbelievably good in the air. When a player tries to launch a ball up the pitch, play that knockdown from the striker, often he'll be on the striker and just knock it down to a midfielder, and you'll start your attack like that. So the other bonus I think that I've really noticed with him is his kind of close control in tight areas is actually really good, and with his body type and his strength, he's able to kind of hold off an oncoming challenge and just calmly lay the ball off, start an attack, and you're on your way again. So I think he's one player that I'd, combined with the fact that he's 85 overall and an inform, recommend just getting into your team if you can do. And I was mentioning Tellez and Ricardo Pereira, both those guys also play for Porto, so you can get quite a nice little combination going there. So I'm really happy with him, and I'm interested to try him out in a weekend league just to see whether he can actually perform at the very kind of highest level, if you like. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think on that we're ready to wrap up. Don't forget, get in contact with us and tell us who you've used and who you've found enjoyable. We may well try them out, and we'll give you our opinions. So let's finish off by asking Wise to tell us where people can find him if they're interested in any of his trading tutorials. Yeah, for sure. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and that's just at WyseFIFA, and Wise with a Y. That's good to hear. And of course, for Economist, who should have been with us today but unfortunately couldn't be, you can find at @foot_economist. And I know Wise, a lot of stuff that you do together obviously goes through his Twitter or foothead.com as well. So finally, we've got Sam, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. And where can people find you if they want to get in contact?
I mean, I'm not too active on Twitter these days, but I do read everything that people sends me. So it's just at Sam5000i. And if I was a sports person interested in pursuing sports abroad, where might I be able to find out more about that? Yeah, so if you're in sixth form or maybe up to about the age of 21, 22, and you haven't been to university but you're interested in doing it, through a sports scholarship in America, then you can contact our business at RecruitMeUSA or recruitmeusa.co.uk.
Thanks very much again, Sam, and thank you, listener, for joining us for this very special first proper pod of FIFA 18. That might be the end of the podcast, but the discussion doesn't end there. We want to hear your thoughts on Foot 18. Drop us a tweet at FootWeeklyPod or email footweekly@mail.com. If you haven't subscribed already, you can do so through a whole range of options by going to footweeklypodcast.com/subscribe, or just search Foot Weekly through your podcast provider of choice.